Stay safe. From KCRG TV9, this is First Alert Weather Now.
Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday evening edition of First Alert Weather Now. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson. Now we had another very warm day across eastern Iowa. Temperatures hit the 50s in some spots, close to records in some spots, but we were a decent distance away in others. We'll take a closer look at the much more warm weather we have coming in the next couple of days. We've also got a chance for rain and some changes coming next week too. We also have your forecast for fun and this week's climate close-up, which takes a look at different elements here around eastern Iowa. Lots of stuff to get to, so let's get to what you need to know as you're heading out there this evening. More warm weather. Yeah, it's pretty decent out there still at this hour. And for your Thursday, we're going to put some more record highs in jeopardy. We could see a few of those set again. That's all ahead of a storm system that brings us a chance for rain. And it actually could be some pretty decent rainfall totals in parts of the area as we head through Thursday night into Friday morning. Now, after that, we'll keep a pretty quiet weekend in our outlook. The rest of the 9-day, though, does feature chillier temperatures, so enjoy the warmth while we have it. We'll be brought a little bit back down to earth again next week. Now, our Dubuque City Cam at this hour shows very quiet conditions for now. Temperatures are in the 30s and 40s, with Dubuque and Waterloo both cooling off a bit faster at 36 degrees. Washington, though, holding on to 45. Winds have also turned pretty light. That should make for a decent evening heading out and about. Now, an area of high pressure is off to our southeast. We are on the warm side of it, so southerly winds will be kicking in over the next 12 to 24 hours. That'll both bring in warmer air and a bit of moisture. This low pressure center that's over in the central plains will be moving our way and bringing us that rain chance. But that's not tonight. In fact, we're going to keep pretty clear skies going overnight as lows head for the upper 20s. That's pretty close to where we started today, so a pretty decent start there again. We do have a lot going on the second half of this week, even a few things taking place outdoors around eastern Iowa. Meteorologist Joe Winters has tonight's forecast for fun.
Again, we're in the late part of January, but our weather certainly is feeling like a little bit spring, and you may have been out for that morning walk. Next couple of days still looks good. 52 degrees on Thursday, 43 Friday. And you see the rain out there. That is late Thursday evening if you're out for a walk, and then again probably the first half of our Friday. So you have to time it right. Download the First Alert Weather app to watch when that rain may affect your walk. 40 degrees on Saturday, a bit stronger wind, but that's still not bad for this time of the year. Let's not forget Friday, the owl prowl at the Osborne Nature Center, 5:30 to 7. Secretive nocturnal animals. You can learn about them. You can call in the owls, but bring a flashlight. You'll be out on the trails as well. Should be a great time. And looks like some pretty decent weather by the time the owl prowl is on. Dry for that puck drop at 7:05. That's at the I'm on Ice Arena. Of course, on Saturday, we are looking at 40 degrees. Our nature-themed trivia night at the Indian Creek Nature Center takes place on Saturday as well. 6 to 8:30. Test your knowledge of plants, wildlife, and habitats. You can win prizes earlier in the day, about 38 degrees. And there's an ice fishing tournament. Let's not forget on Saturday at Center Junction. Now, watch to see what they're going to do with the ice. Again, it's been warm. Jones County Central Park, the place to be. They have a kids-only zone, a big fish prize, a freeze-out childhood cancer. That's the benefit for the registration at the ice fishing tournament again, coming up in Center Junction. That comes up on Saturday. It's the 8th annual. Those are just some of the things you can do in eastern Iowa. That's why we give you your forecasts for fun.
Now, your First Alert forecast with meteorologist Corey Thompson.
Expecting things to mostly stay quiet within the range of our 24 hours here on your First Alert, but that changes late. That's when we do have the chance for some showers developing. Now, a few isolated ones as we go through the afternoon hours of your Thursday. Chance actually picks up a little bit more as we head toward Thursday evening and night. Tonight, no such story. We do have mostly clear skies overhead. Our Marion City Cam shows a picture of quiet at this hour. Temperatures are in the 30s and 40s as we noted. So with that lighter wind out of the west or northwest, that could push those wind chills down a few degrees, but nothing drastic. It's actually not a bad night to get out and about with those relatively warm temperatures. Remember, our normal highs are in the upper 20s to low 30s still. Now, our satellite and radar view across eastern Iowa shows just maybe a few thin clouds moving through, but that's about it. A wider view, though, shows what's on the way. Off to our southwest, a little swirl in the clouds here toward the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle is our low pressure system. That's going to track to the northeast over the next 24 hours and give us this moisture too, both in the form of clouds and eventually the chance for some rain. Now tonight we will stay dry and mostly clear. Temperatures in the upper 20s with 28 in Fayette, 29 in Oskaloosa. Our normal low is in the low teens, so we are far from that. And by tomorrow afternoon, well into the 50s for many of us again, with 53 in Fayette, 54 in Iowa City. Now the far south actually limited a bit in terms of those temperatures thanks to the increased cloud cover earlier in the day. The north, especially north of Highway 20, more sunshine for more of it. Now, our records tomorrow are within reach of those temperatures. Cedar Rapids a couple degrees short of a record of 56 in 2012. Dubuque likely to set a record tomorrow, and one that's lasted all the way since 1890. Waterloo could tie there, set in 1924, so some of those distant ones have the potential to fall with those warm temperatures coming in. Now, Pinpoint Futurecast otherwise shows those mostly clear skies. Southerly winds will be with us overnight. We'll see that more uniform shift in winds from those west or northwest winds we've seen most of the day today. That will be key to getting a little bit more moisture into the region. Now, that moisture first in the form of a few clouds, later in the form of some shower activity. You see that approaching by about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening in terms of getting that possibility north of Interstate 80 up to about Highway 20. Notice how little north of Highway 20 sees that rain activity. It's to the south and especially south of Highway 30 where that more uniform area of rain, light to moderate at times, could develop. Now late Friday night into early Friday morning, before this precipitation moves off to the southeast, we do have some cold air in the atmosphere, and it's going to try to mix in a few snowflakes before that precipitation comes to an end. Does look pretty unlikely across southeast Iowa, but we can't fully rule it out. So south of Interstate 80, a little bit of that may take place before it comes to an end on Friday. Now, in terms of precipitation totals, we've been talking about this too, giving you a pretty good shot at seeing at least half an inch of rain for the areas south of Highway 30. That's some good news after some dry weather. It will be very warm ahead of it, well above normal temperatures, even as we head towards Saturday with a little bit of a cool down represented by these oranges and reds on your screen. Sunday at this point looking like quite a warm one too, but it's early next week when we start to see those temperatures change a little bit. Even 30s by then will still be slightly above normal in terms of our temperatures for the early portion of February, so we're not expecting a giant cool down there. Now, we do have a lot to keep an eye on here around the state, and growing zones are important for farmers and gardeners alike. They impact the plants we can grow. Now, First Alert meteorologist AJ Rickman breaks down growing zones and the changes we're seeing in today's Climate Close-Up.
Well, for this week's Climate Close-Up, we're going to have a look at something that gardeners are very familiar with, which is known as growing zones or U.S. hardiness zones. Now, those have been changing as our climate has been changing, and we'll kind of break down the details on what exactly is causing those changes and then some of the impacts that we can expect for growers and other folks alike. Now, as we have a look at what exactly those shifting growing zones are, I do have this map behind me. This is a map from 1971 to 2000. Data was taken that measured the 30-year average lowest annual temperature across the U.S., and that is part of what was used to calculate U.S. hardiness zones. Now, these zones are numbered. The farther south you are, the higher that number, and the farther south you are, of course, the more you are able to grow warm weather crops. There are crops that grow well in more northern zones that generally do see that environment and thrive in that environment, but we are starting to see a shift in those growing zones. So this is for 1971 to 2000. So the best way to track this northward trend is to pick a line or pick a transition. For example, this transitional line right here in northern Missouri. As we shift forward 10 years and look at a change in our temperature trends and therefore our hardiness zones from 1971 to 2000 over to 1981 to 2010, you do see a very subtle northward shift of that line. And of course, you can pick a different line for our next shift that we watch. The rest of these zones are shifting north as well. As we go from 1981 to 2010 to 1991 to 2020, once again, we see a subtle northward shift in our growing zones. Now, for northern growers who enjoy growing warm weather crops, tomatoes, peppers, this can mean a longer growing season and a warmer growing season, which can be a bit of a benefit to those who are wanting to have more of an opportunity and more availability, especially in those northern colder climates, for growing certain crops. So that is one thing that in a way could be seen as a positive for those northward shifting growing zones. However, warmer weather crops, those may be planted farther north, species that depend on those colder conditions for the benefit of next year's crop. An example would be fruit and nut trees. As those conditions warm and as our climate warms, that will harm those crops and their necessary number of hours that they need to have colder weather to produce the next year's crop, there will be less of that, and that crop will be negatively harmed as a result. The other thing we'll need to be watching for is that pests and weeds that are able to live better in southern, more warm climates will start to migrate north as those conditions warm. So this is one of those changes that change alongside our climate. That is one of those things. There are benefits, but there are also drawbacks, and we need to weigh both of those as we prepare for those changes that will be brought about as our climate changes. So that is what we have today for this week's Climate Close-Up.
And over the next few days, we will see some changes in our temperatures in the short term. 50s again make their return on Thursday. Watch for those record highs by the afternoon. Rain Thursday night into Friday. Pretty good chance there. But those northerly winds on Friday send our temperatures lower. Will likely be in the upper 30s to low 40s on Saturday, but the winds begin to shift by then, and so expect some gusty winds at times, especially in the afternoon. Those could get above 30 miles per hour at times again, and it's that southerly wind that's going to help give us a little boost in temperatures as we wrap up the weekend. In fact, we'll go from 41 on Saturday to 54 by Sunday. That is a warm Groundhog Day. Mix of sun and clouds also means that, well, shadows may be seen. We'll have to wait and see. Now, early next week, 30s are likely by Monday and Tuesday. A cold front in between Sunday and Monday as it moves through, likely not to produce precipitation, but certainly bring in a cooler air mass. That leads to that chance for a little bit of rain and snow next week, too. Another storm system could develop by the middle of it. Gives us an opportunity for a mix. Depending on the exact strength and track of the system, could result in some wintry impacts, potentially, if this does set up just right. So we're just highlighting that as a first alert toward that portion of the 9-day forecast. Not guaranteeing that it's going to be particularly disruptive, but it does seem like it's been a little while since we've had to talk about that potential type of impact. Temperatures not seeing a big drop after that system exits by late next week. Still seeing teens for lows and 30s for highs, which by then is pretty close to normal for that portion of the calendar. We'll keep an eye on all of this over the next several days as we get closer, and of course give you the latest updates tomorrow night, same time and same place here on First Alert Weather Now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.